Trading days, February 13th, 2016. This is a follow-up from a post I made last week, and I want to make a couple of things clear. First of all, let's describe what we're looking at. We're looking at a horoscope, what an astrologer uses, one of the tools that an astrologer can use. And this is actually what's called a biwheel. You'll see there's a group of planets on this inner wheel and a group of planets on the outer wheel. The inner wheel is where the planets were located when the USA was created, what we would call born. And you can see the details up in the left-hand corner. That was on July 4, 1776 at 5:13 p.m. There's a number of possible charts for the USA. This is a very popular one. It's called the Sagittarius Rising chart. And this is the symbol for Sagittarius right here. It's based on the time of 5:13 p.m. in Philadelphia on that date. The outer wheel here is showing you where the planets are today. So these planets move around, and they make aspects to other planets that are moving around, and they also make aspects to planets that are where they were in 1776. Of these planets, Pluto is very, very slow. It's a very erratic orbit. We'll call it 248 years, but it can be less, it can be more. It's the most erratic and very, very slow. What it's about to do on February 26th, which is the point I made last week, it's going to move into the second house. The houses we've got noted here, there's 12 of them. They're the individual, look like pieces of the pie of this whole circle. And the two houses of these 12 that have to deal with money are typically called the money houses, or at least the main money houses, are the second house and the eighth house. The second house, that's about resources and wealth, people's personal property, the treasury and banks, securities, just money in general. Pluto, on the other hand, is about major changes, regeneration, breakdown. So it's really about the breaking down the existing structure and then rebuilding it. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to have a crash in a few days. When did I say February 26th, when this enters? Matter of fact, with a 248-year orbit, it's never been here before, so we've got nothing really to go by. Most of the transits that we talk about or aspects, we've got history, and we can look and see what happened to the markets before the same aspect is hitting now, and we can go back and look at it in the past. Well, we can't do it here because it's never been here before. 248 years would take us back to the early part of the 1700s. So we look to the eighth house, and the eighth house, it was here before. And it was actually here twice before that we can measure, and that was July 15th, 1928. This is the date where, well, let's go there. Put it in. It was July 15th, 1928, and all the outer transiting planets have moved. All these planets have remained in the same position. Pluto has just entered the eighth house. Now, it's going to be here for a long time, but you'll see the cusp of what's called the cusp. The entry point is 16 degrees 49 minutes in Capricorn, and it's 16:50, or pardon me, in Cancer, 16, and 50 in Cancer is the location of Pluto. So it's just entered it. What I didn't mention last week is that Pluto is going to go retrograde once it's in the 8th house, and then makes a second entry on May the 26th, 1929. So I've already created this. Let me bring it up. Here is the Dow Jones Industrial Average back in the 20s. Here's the first date of July 15th. So that red circle here is the first time that Pluto entered the 8th house. July 15th, 1928. Pluto went retrograde during this period, and then it went direct again and re-entered the 8th house on May 26, 1929. You'll see in both cases they made a fairly dramatic move. It doesn't mean we're going up, or it doesn't mean we're going to make a dramatic move this time. It may, but it could just as easily make a dramatic move down. This became way overheated, and that, where I'm pointing at, September 1929, that is the top. And from there, it was directly down in misery for much of the 1930s, while Pluto was in the 2nd house. Pardon me, the 8th house, which is a money house. So now we're about to see Pluto enter the 2nd house, the other money house. It's, as I said, it's going to do this on February 26th, but it's going to go retrograde again, and it's going to re-enter the 2nd house on December 29th, so the end of the year 2016. So we can't expect a big crash here. We may get a move down. What I suspect is we're going to have a big unfavorable move while Pluto is in the 2nd house, and probably because it was transited by something that I've got to look at this point. But I wanted to make the point clearer that February 26th, the first entry of Pluto into the 2nd house, is not necessarily going to mean a crash on that day or days around it. Just to show some of the differences that can happen, we've been talking about the Saturn-Neptune square for quite a few weeks now. That's a 36-year cycle. Saturn squared Neptune. So the last time it took place was the late 70s, say 1980, but a little and somewhat before. So what was going on in the world? Some of the big things were a shortage of crude, a shortage of oil, and interest rates that went up to 20% in the early 80s. I had a 20% mortgage, so I remember it well. Now we've got that same aspect again 36 years later, and we've got too much oil, too much crude, and we've got interest rates near zero and some going negative. I raise that point to stress that these aspects, they'll hit the same theme, the same items, but not necessarily the same theme. In the Saturn-Neptune case is kind of the exact opposite. 1970s, lack of crude. Now we've got an abundance. So I wanted to make those points. I hope that makes it clearer. That's all I'm going to say on this. Thank you very much for listening.